And now for our feature presentation.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
Puts it up. Whoa! There goes Davis. Oh my God! Davis is going running all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. American Soul is finally the one. American Soul has won the Triple Crown. And Bonds hit play high. It's a dig. It is high ball into right field. She is gone. Unbelievable! A home run for Gibson, and the Tigers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
Here are your hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon and a welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online. 12:02 p.m., final Monday of the month of June, June the 29th. Just a couple of days away from July. 4th of July week is here. If any of you are set to go on vacation somewhere, well, good luck with that. But if you are, good for you. It falls on a Saturday this year. As a matter of fact, what's neat about it falling on a Saturday is that it's recognized as a national holiday on a Friday. So there's a lot of people with Friday off, like my wife. They don't have to work because the government has to recognize it during a work day. So that's good for all of us. Hopefully it'll be a good week here in Charleston and all across the nation. Darren Goldwater, Jay Bradford, like I said, we're here until 2 o'clock. You can watch us on our Twitter page. You can watch us on YouTube. You can watch us on Facebook. You can go to jbandgoldwatershow.com and have all those platforms available there. And, of course, if you're listening on the Podbean app, we appreciate that everywhere at JB and Goldwater. He is at Darren Goldwater. I am at Sports Radio JB. Fun show. Very fun show today. Darren Heitner, he will join us at 1:30 this afternoon. If you haven't heard Darren on our program before, he was here, I think, a couple months ago, maybe, Darren, right?
It was right when the NIL was breaking that, what, Florida is about to jump ahead of California.
Right.
That's when we had him.
Okay, and so he's going to join us today from Florida as well. He's he is right in the middle of all this stuff as an attorney. So today he'll act as a legal analyst for us. But what we're going to talk to him about, yes, is some NIL. But over the weekend, some major news in the sports attire department as Under Armour is trying to withdraw or eliminate their contracts with a couple of schools out west, Cal and UCLA. UCLA is the big one because it's about $280 million worth of deals, apparel deals that they have with the Bruins athletics department. And so we're going to talk about that, and he'll tell you why. It's a loaded show today. We've got some major citadel notes to get to. We'll get to the state of Mississippi and them voting to remove the state flag and how that will further affect athletics in the state. We've been down this road before, right here in the state of South Carolina. Good news for Dustin Johnson this weekend. You probably saw that he won the Travelers. Also, some more very important golf news to get out today. If you haven't heard, Fox and Golf, they look to be separating. Cam Newton, he's headed to New England. Clemson has some new COVID numbers. Coach Tanner issued a statement on Friday. We're going to get to that here in just a minute. Major League Baseball news. A couple of notes on schedules, but schedules planning to come out a little bit later. Roster notes, very valuable to in-state guys who we know quite well. And kind of related to that, today is 10 years removed from the first national championship for the Gamecocks. I know our friends at 107.5 The Game in Columbia are celebrating this all day long as they have a bunch of guys who I know very well, a bunch of former players on the air up there. It is exactly 10 years ago today that Game 2 was captured in Omaha by the South Carolina Gamecocks, and they would go on, of course, to win another national championship the following year. I was telling someone this morning, it feels like it was yesterday. 843-321-8893 if you would like to give us a call. Because we are celebrating 10 years with South Carolina today, Blake Cooper, former ace of the Gamecocks and now current pitching coach of the Citadel Bulldogs under the leadership of Tony Skull downtown. Blake's going to join us in about 25 minutes, and we'll look back on that run that they made, look back at his career, and we'll have a lot of fun with him. I've known Blake for a long time, Darren. He's a wonderful guy. He's a hell of a fisherman. Maybe he might be better at catching largemouth than he is at recruiting kids. No, I'm kidding.
His Twitter profile says, pitching coach at the Citadel, bass fisherman. I think it's a bass fisherman.
Yeah. Probably. I'm not sure.
Or maybe professional fisherman, something along those lines.
He could be. Him and Smoke are very similar. They're very similar people. And they played together for a couple of years, but him and Smoke are very similar. There's baseball, and then there's fishing.
And that's it.
Yeah, and that's, outside of family, that's kind of it, So we're excited to get Blake on the show today. At 12:30. By the way, I want to make sure that we do plug this here because DC told us last week this was coming, and I kind of knew that's what it was, but I wanted to certainly wait till it came out. His 3-part series in the Post and Courier did begin this weekend and concluded today. It is a 3-part rewind, essentially, of this 2010 World Series. David Cloninger, I would encourage all of you to go to postandcourier.com or pick up your Post and Courier if you have it delivered or wherever you go to get it. Really, no shocker here, wonderfully done by David Cloninger. Really neat look back at some of the things maybe you've forgotten a little bit about and stuff like that. And so that is out there as well. Well, of course, you called one of the games on the way to Omaha for South Carolina because you were the voice of the Citadel Bulldogs at the time, and this was in the regional in Columbia in the summer of 2010, June of 2010. And the Citadel actually they wouldn't have eliminated South Carolina at all, but it would have given them a loss at home in a regional. They had them on the ropes because Asher pitched that game. And matter of fact, I think Blake started that game.
That's right.
Blake Cooper.
Yeah, so Asher went into the 7th with a lead for the Citadel. And had the Citadel won, the Citadel would have been 2-0 in the Columbia Regional. They had just beaten Virginia Tech.
Right.
They pitched backwards, so Matt Talley, their typical Saturday guy, beat Virginia Tech, and then Wojo came in, and South Carolina's goal was to run up the pitch count because by this point, everybody knew that Wojo would be a first-round, maybe at worst a second-round pick. So this was not your typical SoCon arm. And they got his pitch count up. He was in the 130s, I believe, in the 7th. Got a little bit rattled. There was a balk in there. There was a bomb in there. And South Carolina came from behind to win that game.
I'm trying to remember who hit that home run.
It was
it Adam Matthews?
No, we looked this up once before. Catcher.
Was it Brady?
Yes, I think it was Brady.
Brady Thomas?
I think it was Brady.
Brady Thomas, yeah. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, and that was an incredibly talented Citadel team, and they had the utmost respect of that Gamecock baseball team in that regional. And when you went into that regional, as a matter of fact, is that the regional ring?
Yeah, you probably can't. You definitely can't see this, but yeah, this is the regional ring for the Citadel. Won the Southern Conference. They went 43-22. It was Freddie's best year, and the Citadel won the SoCon. They wire to wire, basically.
Oh yeah,
not basically, completely.
That team was loaded.
Yeah, it was a great team, and my only championship ring is a radio guy, so I covet this thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, all the local guys, and obviously we're talking about the Gamecocks here, but what was neat about that, actually, about that game in particular, in Columbia, was how many players kind of knew each other. It's if you grow up in this baseball community that is the state of South Carolina, you all pretty much know who everybody is. But that Citadel team had a bunch of local kids on it. Kyle Jordan and I think Nick Sprouse. It might have been his final year from Wando. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, Nick could have been on that
7,
team.
8, 9, 10. Yeah, it was just final year.
Yeah, they had 2 big league arms. Mike Clevenger was the Sunday guy, who's now the Indians ace.
Right.
He was a freshman for the Citadel then.
And Wojo.
Yeah, and Wojo.
And of course with Wojo. Yeah. So, that was a really good team, but I think going into that regional, I think that most people expected right off the rip that it would be South Carolina and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech had a really good season.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the Citadel beat them, of course. Then South Carolina beat the Citadel, and then Virginia Tech ended up eliminating the Citadel. And then South Carolina would eliminate Virginia Tech and move on. And they would move on to Myrtle Beach, which is where Christian Walker hit the grand slam to give the Gamecocks the lead in Game 2. And we had Coach Holbrook just a couple of months ago talking about that game specifically, and he said that team that the Gamecocks beat that year, that Coastal team might have been the best team he ever coached against, period. And it was 2 one-run games, 4-3. Blake won that game, who, again, Blake Cooper's going to join us in 20 minutes. He won that game at BB&T Park. And then the next day, it was the grand slam by Christian Walker, and they win that game 10-9. So South Carolina, by virtue of 2 one-run games, goes to Omaha, and then they lost that first game to Oklahoma, and then bounced back and torched the top seed in the tournament, Arizona State, 11-4, and then they were on the ropes against Oklahoma, and that was the game where, quote, Jackie missed third, which is what Coach Holbrook had also referenced on our program. They were down to their last strike. Jackie hits the single into right field, and then Brady Thomas ends up hitting a single up the middle, and it scores Jackie, and they win in the 12th. And then from there, it was on. 5-1 over Clemson, 4-3 over Clemson, and then UCLA 7-1 and the Witt walk-off 2-1, and they win a national championship, and they don't lose in the postseason until they get back to the national championship in 2012. They didn't lose a game in 2011 in the postseason at all. It was a remarkable run.
I'll correct myself there. So the home run was late in the Citadel game. Marzilli knocked in 2 runs to bring it even at 4. That was in the 7th. Also in the 7th, Marzilli scores on a wild pitch. Then Morales doubles into right, scoring Thomas. Walker doubles to left, drives in Morales. So 7th was huge. And then Morales in the 9th.
That's right.
A 2-run shot in the 9th to make it 9-4 and really put the game.
It was out. Yeah, it was over
because the Citadel was the home team.
Right
in Columbia.
That's right. You knew it was over then, especially with Matt Price lurking in the bullpen. And matter of fact, Matt Price and Michael Roth, if any of you missed this, back in December, were named as 2 members of the D1 Baseball All-Decade team, and they should have been. Yeah, it was a remarkable group, and I'm excited to talk to Blake about this here in just a little bit. We'll really get into more of this. But again, I'll kind of regurgitate some of this information in a little bit. What some people forget about that team, though, Darren, that Carolina baseball team, it was everybody, when they look back on it, they say, oh, they were gritty, and they were tough, and they were this, and they just had some magic. Yeah, they were also really, really talented. 6 guys on that team made the big leagues. 6. And it's like almost triple that of guys that actually had opportunities in professional baseball altogether. There was a lot of talent on the field. And the reason that they weren't really ranked, or that they weren't a top 8 seed, now it's top 16 seeds, which is what it should have been that way all along. But the reason they weren't a top 8 seed, if you remember that year, they started out 6-4. Clemson crushed them inside of Founders Park. God, I can't remember the score of that game. I mean, it was people wanted Ray Tanner fired because, well, here's the thing.
I don't remember that part. I remember in the regional, though, there was no sense that, look, this is a national championship contender.
No.
That wasn't the sense at all. This was obviously a good baseball team that was hitting its stride.
Well, and one of the things, too, that had contributed to that, which in your prep work, this probably will remind you a little bit, was going into that regional. So you had the Citadel, you had Virginia Tech, and I think you had Bucknell.
Bucknell, yeah.
All right, so those 4 teams were there. But Carolina had just done what Carolina always does. They go to Omaha, 2 and out, get the hell out of there.
Oh, the SEC.
Yeah, they went and didn't play well. They scored like 1 run in 2 games in Birmingham, which is pretty normal. I mean, outside of 2004 when they went over there and won the conference tournament, they don't do crap in Birmingham. Never have. I think it's only a handful of years, Darren, where they've actually won more than a game, I think, in the SEC tournament. And so once again, they're coming into the postseason, although they were already well over the 40-win mark, but they had lost 2 in Birmingham, and it was just kind of like, it's a good team, should get out of this regional, more than likely won't get to Omaha. They're paired with the Coastal Super. Coastal was really good. And, yeah, you know, good team, but probably not going to make it back. And they did. And the reason – so I remember the calls for Tanner to be fired. I remember listening to 107.5 The Game. Guys like Jay Phillips and Tommy Moody and Michael Haney, who were on the air, who's in Nashville with Patrick Davis now. Those guys will tell you that. This was after the Clemson series early in the year. Tanner's lost it. Here's why they were saying that.
Did Tommy Moody say that?
No.
Oh,
no. I'm talking about these guys who were on the air getting these calls every day.
Okay.
And see, so Coach Tanner took the Gamecocks to Omaha in 02, 03, 04. All right, so Drew Meyer, that 02 team, they get beat by Texas in the national championship. 03 04, they go and win a couple games and then got beat. And then 05, lost in a regional. And then 6, 7, 8 were the years that fans really thought, okay, we're going back to Omaha because of these loaded recruiting classes that he had brought in, Coach Tanner had, that included in-state talents like Smoke Havens, Cisco, Will Atwood, and others, and then also these JUCO guys who were just really, really good. And they didn't in 06, that was the 5 in a row. Mike Morgan called that game in Athens. Okay, so Gamecocks stomp, I think 4-seeded Georgia at the time. Game 1, they're going. Nope. Lost game 7, lost game 8. Or lost game 2, lost game 3. Out. 07, they go to Chapel Hill, national seed in North Carolina. They lose game 1, win game 2, and lose game 3, and it was errors as to why they lost those 2 games. Should have won that series. There's no question about it. They totally outplayed North Carolina. That was a talented Dustin Ackley and those guys. They were really good. But they, I don't want to say choked it away, but that's what it felt like. It was like, oh, my God, how did this even happen? Dropped a fly ball in the outfield.
If they're errors, it's easy to say, like, you kind of choked.
And these were routine plays.
Right.
Like, these weren't even – this is – and you know, the staple of Ray Tanner's teams where you're always going to play defense. There's no question. And then in 08, they don't get out of the regional in Raleigh. And then in 09, they don't get out of the regional in Greenville, North Carolina against East Carolina. And so fans are frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, they're looking back going, okay, regional in 05. You had all this talent in 06, 7, 8. You choke away 2 supers is what they were saying. 08, 09, you're losing regionals. You open up 2010, you're 6 and 4. You just get 2 of 3 are taken from you by Clemson. This guy doesn't have it. He's it's been 6 years since he's been in Omaha. We need to fire Ray. We need to fire Ray. We need to fire Ray. Fire Mark Calvey. Fire Sammy Esposito. Fire all these guys. I mean, you heard it everywhere. Well, it turned around, and then they beat Clemson twice in Omaha, and they put the stamp on that season real quick. And then, of course, they go win the national championship, and then win another. And then they have a chance to win another. They got beat by Arizona. Arizona was good. And it was just it was an amazing time. I mean, I'm glad I can remember all of this as clearly as I can.
Your memory is it's unbelievable. I mean, you're just rattling this stuff off like game after game from 06, then 7, then 8. It's like, well, dude.
You know, I mean, probably because I was so close to it. You know, I didn't necessarily I mean, I didn't play or anything like that there, but these were my guys. I mean, I know all this stuff. I remember all these guys and what they did and was around it and stuff. And yeah, it was an incredible stretch. It was the most today 10 years ago was the most important day in the history of this state in college baseball when that team won that game and won that first national championship this state's ever seen. And to this day, it is still the most important day because it propelled the next year. And then Coastal comes up and wins one a few years later. But that first one will always be remembered.
Yeah, it's got to be.
And in the way that it happened, that's one of the 2 or 3 most iconic plays in the history of the College World Series. I mean, you talk about LSU's walk-off in 96.
Warren Morris.
Yeah. You talk about this one. Name another one. That's better than those 2.
Right. And off the top of your head, there are just some indelible moments that are just ingrained, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to Omaha, which I haven't, but I've seen the pictures of the stadiums and I've seen the murals, and when you watch it, you see these plays over and over and over again. So
Witt and Roth are still up in Omaha. Their pictures are still there. I mean, Witt's arms in the air. I'll tell you another one. 08? No. Yes, 08, when the left fielder for Fresno State caught the final out. Because Fresno State was a 4 seed in a regional.
That's right. That was one of those miraculous type runs.
They were the Cinderella of all Cinderellas.
Right. Yep.
They were a 4 seed in a regional. A 4 seed in a regional.
That's pretty far down the list.
That means that they were one of the last 16 teams to make it into the tournament. And they were further down than that. They were like one of the last 4 teams to make it into the tournament. And they got hot and won the World Series. And that was a stretch of 3, Darren, for the West Coast, because Oregon State won it in 06 and 07. Texas won it in 05.
I'll rely on your memory is clearly
I know they won
superior
it,
to mine.
I know they won it in 02, and I think they won it in 05. And then Oregon State, Fresno State. LSU won it in 2009. And then South Carolina, Arizona. But the West Coast had a nice little run there. And of all teams, Fresno State. It's crazy. Crazy stuff. But anyway, so we'll talk about all that stuff with Blake. Roster notes from this weekend. There's a lot of them. First of all, congratulations to our friend Nick Schufo. He's on the 60-man with Texas. He is not on the active roster, but he is in camp.
Yeah.
So you correct me where I'm wrong here, but when you make that 60, that's the taxi squad, right?
Correct.
So you have the opportunity to make it onto the active roster at some point in time. That's the group that they're going with if they have to call up and things like that.
If you're not on the 60, you are not going to play in the big leagues this year.
Okay.
So now what some teams have done, and the Rangers are one of them, Nick's dad Tony corrected me yesterday, the Rangers put out a list of 55 guys. So they still have some wiggle room. I guess you had the ability to add a couple guys later.
Okay.
So they put out 55, and Nick is on that 55. Most teams put out 60 or right around the 60 number. But if you're not on that list, then you don't have a shot. So at least at this point, say something happens with some of the Rangers catchers, yes, Nick is an option that they can go to.
Okay. Fantastic. I hope he gets his chance. Obviously, Nick has been in the big leagues with Tampa already. Does have a home run to his credit. I think he might have 2. I know he's at 1. I'll have to, Tony, if you're listening, correct me on that. But we just had Shu on the show with us not too long ago, maybe a couple of months ago, when we were live at Stokes Volkswagen. And so anyway, so he's got a chance here. There are a bunch of names recognizable to this state, Darren, that are on 60-man player pools. We can name the notables like the Jackie Bradleys and the Whit Merrifields and the Christian Walkers and guys like that. But there are other guys like who you already mentioned, Wojo and Clevenger, both Citadel guys. There's other guys. There's some former Gamecocks. Will Crow is on the 60-man with the Washington Nationals. Former power righty with South Carolina. Hopefully he'll get a chance. He's got a big league arm.
Nationals like him. He fits the mold. The Nationals
Absolutely.
like those big power guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he fits the mold. Clark Schmidt, who was an ace at the College of Charleston.
No, the South Carolina.
That's
Clark Schmidt.
Yep. Okay, you're right.
Yep.
Either way,
With
in the state,
Yankees.
he's with the Yankees.
Yep. And Jordan Montgomery's back with the Yankees as well. I think Tyler Webb has made a roster. So this is there are a lot of, this is really neat to see. There are a lot of guys who've got a shot, and this is really great for their future. So even if they don't make it this year, they're still getting to be a part of baseball, which is obviously going to be beneficial to the future of their career, Darren. So it was neat to see some of these 60-man. And you mentioned a minute ago that the Rangers did 55, so they have the option to add 5. Somebody did 45.
Someone did go pretty low. I don't remember which
the
team.
Mets?
I'm not sure which team it was.
Somebody out there is sitting at 45. So you don't have to list your 60. You can add to it. Right?
I'm assuming. Now, I wouldn't quote me on this. I think it's all related to COVID stuff and seeing, because the players don't report, I want to say, until Wednesday.
Yeah, July 1st.
So they have a couple of days of testing and then reporting, and I think it gives you some wiggle room to add guys in the early stages of, if you want to call it spring training, then summer training, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, all right. Well, that's great. I mean, that's great. This is really neat to see. The Braves, that they issued their 60 as well. I think they've got 50. The club included 56 players in the pool, so they're a little bit short as well. And then they've got 17 non-roster submissions as part of that 56, if you haven't seen the Braves. I expect the Braves to probably carry, I don't know if it's going to be 9, but probably 7 or 8 starters. I think they're going to carry 7 or 8 starters. I truly believe Atlanta is going to try and stack start. Might be wrong. We'll see. But I think they're going to try to do that.
That's what Corey McCartney told us last week. I would trust him. Looking at the roster that they've put out, it looks like that's their mindset. But again, different teams will have different mindsets.
Yeah.
It's all going to fall on the GM, the scouting departments, the analytic departments, the managers. How do we want to approach this? What's our best way to utilize what we've got in this 60-game sprint?
Yeah, you know what's crazy about this too is, like, take a kid, the catcher who the Braves drafted last year, their top pick, Shea Langeliers. More than likely in the future, and actually, I would have even said if they played a full season this year, by the end of the year, he would have probably been their starter. I mean, he is their long-term guy behind the plate, kind of like their next Brian McCann, so to speak. But how fast are some of these teams going to be anxious to try to get some of these guys up there? Like, obviously, it's a shortened season, so do you feel more comfortable with your veterans? Is there a veteran who's not going to be on a very long leash this year and you go, look, if you're not getting it done, we're going to go ahead and make the move? It's going to be fascinating to watch that.
And you see a lot on these rosters that were just put out yesterday. A lot of like 2019 first, second round guys, they're on there. So there is a chance. I mean, lots of prospects are on across the league. So there's a chance that some of these guys get an opportunity if the opportunity presents itself.
No doubt about it. No doubt. It's really, really going to be neat to watch. All right, we do need to hit a timeout. Blake Cooper, pitching coach at the Citadel, former ace with the South Carolina Gamecocks. He'll join us when we return. When we also return, we'll take a look back at what happened in 2010. Something, if you are a Carolina fan, but even if you're not, you just might enjoy hearing what it sounded like 10 years ago. Today, 10 years ago, but also pretty much over the last week, a little bit of a timeline of how we kind of got where we were when South Carolina was able to defeat UCLA. So a quick look back and then a conversation with our friend Blake Cooper on the JB and Goldwater Show.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit StonoFerryGolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. StonoFerryGolf.com.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family-style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out. If you're not ready to venture outside yet, we're here for you.
Struck him out. Cooper pitching his second straight outing on 3 days rest. Brilliant performance by the senior from Nices, South Carolina. And those aren't boos, that's Coop. Line drive, right field, face hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Swing, line drive, right field. It drops. Coming home is Wingo. He touches home. The game is over. The game is over. The wait is over. The Gamecocks are the national champions.
It started with Jackie Bradley Jr. down to his last strike before roping the single straight into right.
Down to their final strike of the season, Jackie Bradley Jr. delivers for the Gamecocks.
And then we beat Clemson twice when once wasn't enough.
Well, here's Schaus. He hits a ball down to first. Great stop by Walker. South Carolina wins.
And them boys from California, well, they just weren't as tough. As Wingo and his yard cocks, from Walker to Marzilli, they can't be stopped. There's Roth and there's Holmes and old Matty Price. When he comes in the game, we'll just turn out the lights. Yeah, so thank you, Coach Tanner, for building us a winner.
I'm extremely proud for these players, these coaches, the University of South Carolina National Championship.
It sure feels good at the top. So how about another for our boys of summer? Wingo and his yard cocks.
12:32 on a Monday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online. With the help of our friend Patrick Davis, a listen to what it sounded like 10 years ago. 10 years ago today, as a matter of fact, it was national championship number 1 for the Gamecocks as they defeated the UCLA Bruins in Omaha on the bat of Whit Merrifield, but also on the back of guys like this. Our next guest, our friend Blake Cooper, currently the pitching coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, but he was the ace for the Gamecocks. It doesn't seem like 10 years ago, but it was. What's up, brother?
How's it going, JB?
How you doing, man?
Doing good.
You got your Citadel blue on there, I see, huh?
I do, but I have my Carolina baseball shorts on. How about that?
There you go. That's always good. So I know it's probably, I texted you earlier. So you were on 107.5 The Game today, is earlier this morning, as well as part of their kind of look back at 10 years. What is it? Over the last week or so, everybody's kind of been celebrating this first national championship, obviously, that you were such a huge part of. What's that felt like?
Oh, it's been awesome. You know, anytime I get an opportunity to speak about Gamecock baseball, I'm excited about it. So, you know, a situation where it brings back good memories, and, you know, I get to talk to some guys that I haven't talked to in a while, just because, you know, 107.5 has been reaching out to some guys, and I've been trying to help get in contact with some of them as well. So it's been a good opportunity to kind of get back to some of them.
Blake, Darren and I were just talking a minute ago. So Darren was in the ballpark. We're going to lead up to Omaha, and then we'll have some fun when we get there, certainly. But Darren was in the ballpark when y'all had the Citadel in the regional at Founders, or at that time it was Carolina Stadium. up in Columbia. Of course, Darren was the voice of the Dogs then. And how well do you remember that game? Because the Citadel actually had y'all on the ropes, and then things turned around, and of course y'all would just mosey on and just keep on doing your thing. But how well do you remember that regional in the Dogs and Virginia Tech and those guys? They gave you. There were some tough games in there just to even get to Myrtle Beach and then on to Omaha.
Yeah, as a coach now, what you realize is every game is tough until the last out's made. So, it doesn't really matter who you're playing. You got to show up and play. You can't just throw your gloves out like Coach Tanner used to say all the time. So, one thing about that team is, they were really good. You had guys like, Wojo and Matt Talley and Clevenger and those guys. I mean, they had a really good team, and they were set up just like we were as far as the 3 good starters, and they had 3 or 4 guys out of the pen that could really come in and make some noise. So, and then also their lineup was really good as well. And they played really good defense. So they were a really extremely talented team. It's amazing to see being at the Citadel now, the kind of team they put together, there, because, obviously, it is a situation where it takes a special kid to come to the Citadel, and you realize that, the talent they put together is really second to none in the program history. So, they were a good team. I think they jumped out on us. I think it was Brian Altman that hit that home run off of me.
Yeah.
Their catcher. I think he played some third base as well, but, I can remember it. I hung a slider in there and he hit it off the concourse in left field. But like I said, they had a really good team. But obviously we were able to battle back and kind of, get Wojo late in the game and got their bullpen in there. So, but yeah, they had an extremely talented team.
I was just showing it a little bit ago, Blake, the regional ring and the SoCon championship ring from the Citadel that year. You have a much cooler ring from Omaha, I would imagine. But I was telling Jamie that when we were there, when the Citadel was there and I was doing those games, I was doing it with Mike McLaurin, who used to pitch at the Citadel too, and there was never a sense from our side that the Gamecocks were a national championship contender. Obviously, it was a good team. It was a team that had gotten hot, except for the SEC tournament, but it wasn't a national championship contender. What was the feeling in the locker room, and when did you realize that, this is a group that can make that run?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one thing that Coach Tanner was really good at, and I've said this multiple times, is the fact that, he instilled the fact that we needed to play with a chip on our shoulder. And, he never really, like I said before, let us throw our gloves out to win the games. He always talked about, we're pretty much the underdog. We need to play with our chip on our shoulder. We can't just throw our gloves out and win games, and I think that we were so wrapped up in the process and, things that we needed to do and things that we needed to control that, for me, honestly, I had to go back and rewatch the regional, the super regional, the College World Series to really understand what happened in that run. Yeah. Obviously, there are some special things that happened in situations that we were able to get out of and obviously get some timely hits to win some games. So a lot of things matched up for us. But I think a lot of people could say, is it destiny? Is it talent? I don't think we really understood how talented we were until you look up now and there's been, 5, 6, 7 guys in the big leagues. And then you're talking about another 5, 6, or 7 that's played in the minor leagues all the way up to AAA. So, at that time, we were just a college baseball team that really loved the University of South Carolina.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mentioned that to Darren earlier today. I counted 6 off that team who've got some big league experience and at least double that, if not almost triple that, of how many guys had professional experience. So you get out of the regional. You go to Myrtle Beach. All right, so we talked to Coach Holbrook not too long ago, and I'm asking another question about him in a minute. But we talked to Coach Holbrook not too long ago, and I talked to Chad a lot. So Chad's a pretty honest guy. And he told us, Blake, when y'all went up to play Coastal, he said that might have been the best team he's ever coached against. So you beat those guys. Matter of fact, the kid you beat on that Saturday up there, I think, was his first loss of the year. And you go up there and beat those guys, and then in game 1, and then Walker hits the granny in game 2, and you win and move on. When you reflect back on that series and how talented of a team that was, were Coach Holbrook's comments, were they pretty close?
Yeah, I mean, like the comment I just made, we never played the opponent. We played the team. So honestly, we were blind to the fact that a lot of these teams we were playing were that talented. You go into Coastal, and obviously I don't think they lost a game in conference that year. And obviously they had some guys I actually played with at Arizona, Anthony Mayo, and some other guys, Keith Hessler and Cody Wheeler, who's a fifth rounder. They had some guys on that team and a pitching staff. Rico Noel played in the outfield. I think he stole 60 bags that year. So they had an extremely talented team. Taylor Motter been in the big leagues. That I played with actually an all-star game in Double-A. So, like I said, they were extremely talented. But going into that game or that series, we knew they were talented. But obviously they played in a different conference. And that was the pitch from the coaching staff and Coach Calvi as far as their lineup went. He kind of instilled the fact that, if we just did what we could do, we'd be fine. And obviously, we've been tested all year playing in the SEC, and they played in, a weaker conference. Going through that lineup, honestly, we really didn't know who they were from a player standpoint, but obviously the coaching staff did. So, looking back, I'll say this to this day, they were the best team we played in the postseason, even in Omaha.
Yeah. Yeah, that's echoes Coach Holbrook's comments there.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
They were, and I would say, they could have been the top of our league as well. So, just because of the pieces they had, they played really good defense. They had a really good starting three. They had good bullpen guys. I mean, so, the situation where, they were an SEC caliber type team.
Side note before we move on to Omaha, isn't it incredible how the world spins, Blake? A guy that you played under and Coach Holbrook is now the head coach at your crosstown rival. How often do y'all get to hang out and talk? And you think about 10 years ago, you were celebrating today as national champions. 10 years later, you're coaching against him.
Yeah, you never know, when you're going to cross, paths again. So it's a good time whenever we go play those guys, or they come over here, we get to talk and kind of hang out a little bit and kind of reminisce. So, what he's doing over there is special. They're winning a ton of games. They've got some really good recruits coming in. Obviously, we see the same guys, so we obviously know who's got who and, where the program's going. So, but yeah, it was definitely a special time in 2010. But the coaching industry is, such a close-knit family. And, that's one thing I've learned is you feel like everybody knows everybody. So, situation where, he's in town, you get to see each other quite a bit, especially when we're playing.
Talking with Blake Cooper now, who was one of the aces of that South Carolina team.
He was the ace.
13-2. If you're watching the stream, I've put up a couple of numbers. 13-2 on the year, 8+ innings, 10 strikeouts in your final collegiate start, which was 10 years ago yesterday against UCLA. I know you guys, the team, probably share texts and your I guess inside jokes or whatever from that year pretty regularly. But as this week has gone along, going back to last week, and it's 10 years since this game, and now 10 years since that game, and now it's 10 years from the title. What's the best text or email or call that you've received?
I don't know. Matt Price, actually, he was my roommate in Omaha, and he was on the 107.5 game show this morning. And, for Matt, I always roomed with him, and I always had to wake him up to get to the field because he liked to sleep. So before he went on the show this morning, I shot him a text and said, "Hey, you need me to wake you up this morning?" And he's actually working in the law enforcement, so he was working the night shift. So he was actually coming in from work, got on the game show this morning, and went to bed around 9 a.m. So I always the guy that kind of woke him up and got him on the bus ready to go.
Yeah, good thing you didn't leave him.
Obviously, for Matt, he's an unbelievable competitor. I've never seen a guy be able to turn on the light switch like him.
Yeah, I tell you what, you say that, and you look back, Blake, what you had to do as a starter. You knew, right? If you got to the 6th and you had the lead, it was over. Because Taylor and Price were waiting in the wings, and you don't want to miss guys like Jose Mata and guys like that as well. But notable, I think that year John Taylor set the national record for appearances in a season.
Yeah.
And those two guys back into the bullpen as a starter. I mean, you know what it's like now. You're on the other side of this, trying to get your team in a similar spot downtown. How does that feel, knowing, all right, if I give us the lead through 6, we're going to win?
Well, I can give you a little bit of story about Jose Mata, which is kind of, as years go on, he's been a little bit undervalued. He was a guy that would come in and, we needed a guy to get extended to get us later in the game. Say our starter didn't throw well, and we needed a guy to kind of hold it there. He was an integral part to that staff. So, but a story about him, Coach Calvi actually told me he was, recruiting. I believe it was in Florida, and I think Jose came up on the mound, and there was about 10 guys there watching another guy throw. And when Jose got up, Coach Calvi said, 9 of the guys got up and got dogs. And guess what? Jose Mata is South Carolina now.
Wow.
So, it's a kind of a cool story because he got an opportunity and he made the most of it. But yeah, back to Matt, he was one of a kind. He was a guy that really didn't do well unless the game was on the line. And, he was a guy who struggled a little bit in scrimmages and fall practices because he was somebody that needed some adrenaline. He needed that situation to kind of get his mojo going a little bit.
Well, that makes sense because he kept liking to sleep and you kept having to wake him up, so he needs his adrenaline going.
There.
So we're in the hotel room in Omaha, and it's I can't remember exactly what time it was after lunch, and he's still laying in the bed, and I'm getting ready to go pitch game 1 of the national championship game, and he's like, Coop, I know your arm's killing you, I know you're tired. He said, but just get me to the 7th, and I'll finish it off for you. Just get me to the 7th. And, the rest is history.
Before you played that game, obviously there's so many stories, and we could do this, Blake. We could do it all day. But you lose it against Oklahoma in game 1. You took the loss in that game. You bounce back. A couple of days later, you whip Arizona State. They were the top seed in the tournament. You beat Oklahoma. Jackie hits a single. Brady hits a single. You win. And then you get to Clemson. And you beat those guys 5-1, and then game 2, 4-3, Walker fields that ground ball and steps on first base and sends you to the championship series. Was there any sense in the dugout of it doesn't matter what happens from here on out, we've just sent these guys packing after they beat us twice in the regular season. They're going home, our rivals. They were set to play in the national championship till you gave them their 2 losses and sent them home. Was there a sense of, hey, we've accomplished something here, or did Coach Tanner kind of squash that and say we still got 2 more?
Well, it's kind of a crazy season if you look at, just raw numbers and scores and the schedule, because to start that season, we weren't very good. Right. We lost to East Carolina. We got clobbered by Clemson. I think it was, 19-6, maybe. Mm-hmm. We lost 2 out of 3. And I believe it was Nick Schaus. Was it Schaus that hit that ball to Walker?
Yeah, it was Schaus, yeah.
Okay, so he hit. So for me, when I started against him earlier in the year, or it might have been a couple years prior, but I think Chris Epps led off with a home run to Oppo first pitch, and then Schaus hit a pull side jack on a changeup on the second pitch onto the Cajun Cafe in those trees out there. So it was fitting for him to finish that game and us beat him. But, going into that game, Clemson was always, a rah-rah type group who liked to play with a lot of excitement and energy. Going into that game, there was none of that going on. And, for us, we could see it. And you would think that they would have an extreme, confidence about them because they just beat us in the regular season and knew what we had. But for some reason, they didn't have that moxie those 2 games. So, it was almost like a shark in, blood with shark in the water for us. We could see it, and, we were able to pull through. And obviously, Micah Roth through the game of his life.
Oh, God, no question there. We'll come back to Roth in a second. You get the start in game 1, and some would say you dealt, some would say you battled, some would say both. You threw 136 pitches in 8 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. I think you walked a guy, 10 strikeouts, I believe, right? But what was crazy about that game, Blake, was how it started. It was a really wonky start. You remember Coach Tanner, I think he was calling them duck snorts. Some of those balls that were landing for y'all in awkward places, sawed off. I know Brady check swung and one landed right down the line in left field. UCLA made some mistakes early in the game, and you look up after, I think it was after 3 innings, and you're up 5-0. And you're standing out there. There's the Gamecocks ace standing on the bump against nationally seeded UCLA with a 5-0 lead. What was your mentality?
Well, like I said before, we played the game and not the opponent. So going into that game, I had no idea who Garrett Cole was. Wow. Not 1 ounce of thought who he was. And from a pitching standpoint, going into that game, we knew they were a West Coast style offense, so they would try to bunt, they would try to steal, they would try to hit and run, they put pressure on you. We never really pitched to the hitter. We pitched to the position in the lineup based on what we thought they would do. So, the situation where you get that leadoff guy on or get him out, you could really get through that inning pretty quickly. And if they got a leadoff guy on, they would probably bunt him over. So we knew all those small things they were going to do. Fortunately for us, we got ahead early, and they weren't able to do those things. But like I said, we were playing the game, not the opponent.
What is something I just had it up there a minute ago, your last start against UCLA. 10 strikeouts in that game. It was, 10 years ago yesterday. What do you remember most about that one, the last time you took the hill for the Gamecocks?
So, obviously it was, I guess, my third start in 7 or 8 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I was always a guy that liked to go out, an hour, 10 minutes before the game, and I like to soak up the atmosphere. What I'm starting to notice now is some guys, they like to go out there and like to get caught off guard and just roll right into it. But myself, I kind of like to soak in the atmosphere. I like to see the fans. I like to smell the food cooking. I like to get out there early to kind of, get comfortable to my surroundings. So, going into my throwing program and my pre-pitch stuff, I always used to like the long toss. I'd stretch it out as far as I could go to get my arm moving and get it breathing. But that day, obviously, I was dragging. And I went out to about 120 feet. And I can remember Coach Calvey coming to me, and he's like, "Hey, is everything all right?" And I said, "Coach, I told you I wanted the ball. I said, my arm's dragging. It's tired." I said, I'm just going to get it to 120 feet. And he said, "Well," and he looked at me straight in the eyes because he was a serious guy. And, one thing about that coaching staff is they knew, what buttons to push with each guy. For me, if you got into me, it would motivate me. If you told me I couldn't do something, that would motivate me. So, he got into me a little bit, and he said that, the good ones make excuses, the great ones get it done. So, there's a situation where he said, "I don't care how you feel. You're going to go out there and you're going to pitch a game of your life." So, for me, I got on the mound and I would pitch anywhere from 85 to 87, and I'd run it up to 90 when I had to. And, I've mentioned this before, but that day, I've never felt the ball come off my fingers like it did that day. So it was, if he called a slider in, I could literally turn the ball just enough to get it off the plate where I wanted to, when I wanted to.
Wow.
And so for some reason, it just came together. And you'll hear a lot of pitchers say that, you say you start 20 games in a season, you'll have one game to where you feel like, you're playing a video game type deal. And that was it.
Yeah, the ball, I don't know how many of them you threw that actually stayed on the same plane as when they left your fingertips, because everything ran, everything moved. It was a masterful performance. Real quick, I want to ask you about Game 2. I want to ask you the strategy as a pitching coach now, what you would have done. So you've got Wingo on third, 1 out. Witt's at the plate. Jackie's on deck. Walker's in the hole. And Trevor Bauer, and again, y'all didn't know much about him at the time, but Trevor Bauer, who was one of their aces, hadn't pitched, and he's hot. He's in the bullpen. He's ready to go. But they elect to go ahead and throw to Witt, and 2-0, Witt hits it into right field, and of course you win the game. The rest is history. Looking back on it, I questioned even kind of then, Blake, just as a fan, looking at this going, look, these guys mean nothing. You got your dude in the pen. I know you want to start him tomorrow if you get to Game 3, But why not put Witt on? Why not put Jackie on and then bring Trevor in and go righty-righty on the freshman Walker? What would you have done as a pitching coach?
Well, I can remember sitting there and, I can't remember. I think it was Parker Banks to my left, and I think Calby's down to my right. And I can remember thinking, okay, they're going to put Witt, Jackie on. They're going to play for the double play.
Right.
Because Jackie never struck out and Witt never struck out. So the odds are saying they're going to put the ball in play. And, if you bring the infield in, then there's a extreme chance that it's going to get through the infield because he hits the ball hard a lot of the time. So the odds are saying that, probably you should probably walk the next two guys and set up for a double play. You got Walker, who was, wasn't the fastest of fleet runner. So it sets up perfect. He's a double play candidate. So, and then Witt steps in the box and, they don't walk the guy. There's a couple different situations. I think one is you walk the next two. The next option is you bring in Trevor Bauer, who had, 200 and something strikeouts that year?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
206. So it's something crazy, so like I said before, the stars aligned. I don't know why or how. I think it's a credit to the team and the way the guys worked, and a lot of guys put in a lot of work and effort, and guys were holding each other accountable. I mean, it was an unbelievable team and experience.
Final question before I let you go. Looking back on 10 years, you're a national champion for the rest of your life. I don't know as a pitcher that you would compliment anybody probably more than your catcher. What did Kyle Enders mean to you?
Well, I think, he's probably the most underappreciated player on that team. I can't remember the exact numbers, but he probably threw out close to 40% of base runners.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy that, if I had a guy on third base and one out, and I knew a guy was going to swing it to break him on the dirt, I would throw it. There would be no question about it. National championship game on the line, guy on third base, one out. I need a strikeout. I'm throwing the ball in the dirt because I know he's going to block it up. So, he was a guy that was extremely smart behind the plate. He knew the right pitch to call. If I shook Coach Calvi off, he knew exactly what I wanted to go to. So we meshed well together. We had a great friendship. Actually, I spoke to him this morning as well. So, he's actually getting ready to have another baby, and
Wow.
he's got a daughter and he's going to have a son now. So,
Nice. Wow, that's great.
but yeah, he's he was a captain on that team, him and Jay Brown.
Yep.
So we couldn't ask for better leaders, seniors and captains, and just better teammates.
Kyle Enders also on the All Nice team, one of the nicest humans on earth.
As a catcher.
Just one of the kindest dudes you'll ever meet in your entire life.
Yep.
Blake, you're a national champion forever. You're a hero to a lot of Gamecock fans. It's good to talk to you. I'll give you a shout later when I'm headed out of here and headed home. We need to catch up and maybe try to toss some lines in the water, man. I know a place you might be able to find a nice largemouth.
What you got?
Well, I can't give it away publicly, but I'll let you know.
What's in your Twitter bio? It's pitching coach at the Citadel and bass fisherman, or something fisherman?
That's it, bass fisherman.
There you go.
Pride in Nices, South Carolina. Blake, man, dogs are lucky to have you, brother. I look forward to seeing you much more often. We don't see each other enough, so I'll try to catch you here in a little while. We'll catch up, and we'll get down and see you and Tony and the rest of the gang pretty soon, okay?
All right, look forward to it. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Always.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Blake.
All right, have a good one.
There you go, the pitching coach of the Citadel, former star, ace of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Cool stories there from Blake Cooper. Time for a timeout. Hour 1 is in the books. Darren Heitner in Hour 2, football, baseball, golf, bunch of stuff we got to get to, so hang tight. We will be right back.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family-style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out. If you're not ready to venture outside yet, we're here for you.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, 1:03 on a Monday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online. Thanks to our friend Blake Cooper. He's the pitching coach, and they're lucky to have him at the Citadel, where he recruits and directs the right and left arms of guys downtown for Tony Skull. And he's a really good one, and he was a damn good one when he was with South Carolina. Turned into quite the bulldog. No
and
pun
now
intended.
He's a bulldog.
when he was a pitcher, he certainly would grind it out. That was Blake's game, but when he had it, and he certainly had it against UCLA in the national championship. Really good stories there. If you missed any of that, Darren will have all this up post show, and you can find it on all of our platforms. You can go back and listen to that interview. A great conversation with Blake Cooper as we celebrate 10 years, South Carolina winning that first national championship. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. Darren Heitner, he'll join us at 1:30 today. Under Armour, big stories out with them, trying to separate themselves because they don't feel like they've gotten their marketing dollars back from partnering with UCLA and California. So we're going to talk to him about that, also some name, image, and likeness stuff. And we got a lot more to get to here in just a little bit. If you're hungry, DB's Cheesesteaks is where you want to go, dbscheesesteaks.com. That is the entire menu. The menu is also up on our website, jbandgoldwatershow.com. They do deliver. They're in Avondale. They're in West Ashley, and recently voted the #1 cheesesteak in the Low Country. Charleston's Choice winner this year as the best cheesesteak that you can eat. My favorite is the buffalo chicken cheesesteak. Some love the pizza cheesesteak. Some just love the regular cheesesteak. They also have great hoagies, hot dogs, hamburgers, cheeseburgers. They got a great chip selection, too. But whatever you do, don't forget the boardwalk fries. At the best place, voted by you, here in the Low Country for cheesesteaks, DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley.
Fun fact, says Joe Dog. I would imagine a Citadel fan.
All right.
He throws this up on our Podbean message board. Blake Cooper threw out the ceremonial first pitch at Founders Park before the South Carolina Citadel game in early March.
He did, yes.
It was the final game of the season for both teams.
Yeah. Wow. Didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
It sure was, wasn't it? Yeah, because just that Friday, 3 days. I think that was a Tuesday. 3 days after that, or 2 days after that, it was that Thursday is when things got called off because the SEC tournament was set to play in hoops, and Gamecocks were set to travel. Or no, I think Tennessee was set to travel to Columbia. Yeah, I remember that well. Nice fact there.
Yep,
really good stuff. All right, let me get into some news from the Upstate. If you missed this, we found out on Friday the COVID numbers. At Clemson, their active cases, that has increased once again. Nobody hospitalized. It doesn't actually seem like anything very serious, but the numbers did go up. Clemson Athletics released right around dinner time on Friday the latest figures. They also said that 19 of the 47 positive COVID-19 tests are active. So they've had 47 total, but 19 of them are active. 14 of them come from football. So it appears that 37 of the 47 positive cases at Clemson have been as part of the football team. So they are in isolation, and they will continue to work through that. But so I don't know. I mean, because we don't know the numbers for, like, there's some schools, Georgia, South Carolina, others aren't releasing. But I don't know that I've seen anybody higher than 37. LSU was 30-ish?
LSU had 30 quarantined. I don't remember exactly the number of positives. There was a good number of positives, but they had 30 that they had officially quarantined or at least separated.
Okay.
Certainly the numbers at Clemson are as high as we've seen around the country. But like you said, we don't know all of the reporting.
No.
There's an article that I just saw that I'm looking forward to reading it, and we'll probably get into this tomorrow. Dennis Dodd has done a deep dive into this. It's kind of unspoken, but you can get the sense of exactly what's going on. Herd immunity. Now, I'm not going to even speak to the effectiveness of it or whatnot, but you get the general idea. It's like when the chicken pox era, right? Get all the kids together, have a chicken pox party, everyone gets chicken pox, and we're all good. So this herd immunity throughout college football is kind of this underlying unspoken thought. Let's see how many guys get it and get better and move forward. His deep dive is saying it is way off base. That I will retweet the article now. I won't have time to read it till after the show. I'm guessing we'll get to that. But the numbers that we're seeing around the country are concerning. And the Citadel had to shut down workouts not long after Danielle Delahaye was on with us saying, we're planning on playing. And they still are. But they're taking precautions right now. So it's a very fluid situation.
It is a very fluid situation. Yeah, the Citadel is on pause downtown with workouts, and no news on when they plan to get those things up and running again. But I think it was 6 Citadel athletes total had tested positive. So they've just said, okay, well, let's just put this on pause for a little bit and try to get it figured out here. So that's what's going on downtown. Again, there's just going to be reports from all over the country. We are not reading all those, but as far as our state goes, we know of the Citadel, we know of Clemson, and I think that's it. I haven't seen anything anywhere else. But again, it doesn't mean that there's not positives. I feel very comfortable in saying there probably is positives everywhere.
Yes.
They just have elected to not release. South Carolina, for instance, David Cloninger told this story last week. He said that Coach Muschamp polled the parents. Parents said, don't release it. And he said, okay, I won't do it. So they're not going to release any information up there. But good news for the Citadel, sliding from north to south, from Clemson to Charleston. Citadel has popped up at number 21 in the Athlon Sports preseason FCS Top 25 poll. So some name recognition for those guys there. I think Wofford is in there.
Furman. Yeah, Furman's the highest-ranked SoCon team. The Citadel slid in just ahead of Wofford. That's the first time I've seen the Citadel in a preseason top 25, but that's good news, man. I mean, there's a sense down there, just in talking with folks closer to that program, there is a sense that this team was poised for a bounce-back year.
Certainly.
So
and they've added some transfers, too, who can play.
Yeah, the leading rusher in the Southern Conference last year transferred in from VMI.
Right.
I don't ever remember seeing a Citadel player transfer to VMI or a VMI guy transfer down to the Citadel. But it's a graduate transfer, so we won't have to work with the core stuff.
And I'm trying to remember exactly who it was, too, but it'll click with me, I'm sure, after the show. But there's also an offensive lineman from South Carolina who transferred down to play with his brother here at the Citadel.
Yes. He was a center at South Carolina.
Yeah.
And I think they're plugging him at guard, but the name, like you, escapes me.
I don't know why it's escaped me, but it has escaped me. But, yes, good for the Dogs. Some preseason recognition for Citadel football. And yes, I anticipate them having actually a very good year. North Dakota State preseason number 1, no shocker there. Yeah. This is, again, according to Athlon Sports. But we do like to get these in just so people can see what the rest of the country kind of thinks. Northern Iowa at 2, Weber State at 3, James Madison, no shocker there at 4, Montana State at 5, South Dakota State at 6, Montana at 7, Villanova at 8, Illinois State at 9, and Kennesaw State at 10. So a lot of the usual suspects up in the top 10. And the highest-ranked SoCon team, I think you mentioned this a minute ago, was Furman at number 18, 8-5 last year, 6-2 in the SoCon. Then there's the Citadel at 21, Wofford at 22. Towson, by the way, 25 preseason. And they're on the CSU Bucks schedule. So
that's right. So is Furman.
Yeah. And they also go to Arkansas. So there's a tough stretch there for Autry Denson and CSU. We finished the year very well last year.
Maybe they can beat Arkansas. Not out of the question.
Poor Arkansas. They're trying to get it fit. Kendall Byers is the OC. That's better news for me, if you ask me, than Sam Pittman being their coach. By the way, we did preview the SEC West last Thursday. We will preview the ACC Coastal tomorrow. And then later in the week, Darren and I will preview our over-unders on win totals is what we're doing here. If you missed that, you can go back and find that. It is available on Podbean. Also, our YouTube, Facebook pages, Twitter page, all that stuff. You can go back and see what we had to say if you're interested. And then later in the week, we'll preview the ACC Atlantic, which is Clemson, of course, their division, and the SEC East, of course, that is South Carolina's. Out west in the SEC, that's where Ole Miss and Mississippi State stand. And over the weekend, last night, as a matter of fact, at 7:30 is pretty much when this came out. The lawmakers in the Magnolia State did vote to remove the Confederate flag emblem from their state flag. That has been voted to retire that, and that will go into a museum. Pretty much, for the most part, a bunch of the other things that they have kind of changed around in the state of Mississippi over the last 10 or 20 years. This is after widespread increased pressure to do so. There's even a guard who transferred out of Mississippi a couple of weeks ago, and now I think he's landed at Iowa State now. He's started for the Rebels on their basketball team under Kermit Davis the last couple of years, who said he was happy to be out of there and he didn't represent that anymore. I'm not getting into it, but I would pose the question of, you do realize when you committed there that flag was flying. You knew that before. But anyways, that doesn't matter. But the good news is this has been removed. Last state standing that really had anything like this hanging. How it relates to athletic, most importantly, I do still have a gray area on this that it's not going to matter anymore, but I know that the NCAA, just like they did with South Carolina, was not going to allow predated postseason tournaments in the state of Mississippi. Mm-hmm. So basketball tournaments, to be able to host or basketball tournaments, bowl games, things like that. They weren't going to let you do that. But with baseball and with women's basketball, you earn your like, if you earn a regional, if you earn a host site,
that would, just like South Carolina, that would have fallen under the ban. So they would not have been able to host a regional or a super regional.
Because previously that never fell under the ban. Like previously, Carolina and Clemson hosted regionals forever, and that didn't matter. But they weren't. But this state was not allowed to host predated postseason tournaments. So, eventually, like if you qualified and you were awarded a host site because of your success in the season, that was not under the ban ever.
Not even at the end? I thought that was part of it.
That's what they were going to change, and then South Carolina did away with it.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So the NCAA was saying, look, you're done with your baseball regionals. We're adding that to this list,
Right.
unless you change. So that it was the same deal down at Mississippi. And look, credit to them. Every one of the coaches went up to the State House. Every one of them, I don't know if everyone spoke, but they were all there. This came about very quickly. I mean, a week, 2 weeks maybe from the SEC saying something, the NCAA jumping on its back, to then Mississippi changing the flag was rapid. So good for them.
Yeah, the thing that I find fascinating, though, is I'm not calling out anybody here, but what I find fascinating is last night, the State House and Senate, they get this passed and approved and it's done, and they're all standing up giving a round of applause. I'm like, well, I mean, you've all been in office for a while. Like, you obviously have had the opportunity to do this, but then now all of a sudden it comes down to, oh crap, we're going to lose a bunch of money financially. Let's get rid of this thing, and that's how politics work.
I'm
so
sure.
whatever.
I'm sure plenty of them wanted it gone, and there was just not enough support in the past. And
yeah, well, there was.
Now there was enough.
Yeah,
Yep.
once you start playing around with people's money, that'll change quick.
Stuff.
Changes quick. Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, that was where, because I hadn't seen anything that correlated directly to how it had changed under our state, because for the longest time they could not host predetermined sites in our state. But if you qualified, that didn't matter. You could host it because it had everything to do with what you did during the season. That was a qualification method. It wasn't a chosen site.
Correct.
So anyways, doesn't matter now. Mississippi is back in the mix to be able to host. I think they had some things on the table too. I think not just baseball and softball qualifications, but I think the NCAA was planning to host. Oh, I know. Southern Miss. They play in the
CUSA.
Conference USA. Okay, so Conference USA was wanting to host some tournaments, baseball tournaments and stuff like that. Couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
The SEC has been in talks with them about hosting a couple of things. I think the NCAA's looked at them for basketball tournaments and first rounds and stuff like that, especially with the success of Mississippi State's women's basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And so none of that was going to be able to be done, but it is now. So another change, another good change coming out of what we've seen over the last few weeks. I don't think I missed any information with that, right? I'm pretty sure wrong.
No. That's the whole Mississippi story.
Trying to squeeze everything in here as much as we can. All right, on to golf. So DJ wins this weekend. Good for Dustin Johnson. I retweeted, if you follow me on Twitter at SportsRadioJB, this win for him at the Travelers was actually very significant on a few fronts. And I sure as hell didn't realize a lot of this stuff, Darren, and maybe you had going into this. So Dustin Johnson wins at the Travelers this weekend. Played remarkably well. It's his 21st win in his career for Dustin Johnson. That gives him at least one win in 13 consecutive seasons. So let me tell you what that does. Tim Hill, with 107.5 the game, let me credit him for this stat yesterday. That this is where I first saw this. With those 13 straight wins since joining the PGA Tour, every season since joining the PGA Tour, that puts him in a group of 4 players who have won a tournament in at least 13 straight years. The other 3, quite recognizable names. And you don't have to even say their last names. Tiger, Arnie, and Jack.
Yeah.
And now DJ is a part of that group.
I didn't realize that until watching the coverage yesterday. And they started talking about it as DJ came up and caught the lead, tied for the lead, and then certainly as he almost put it away on 12 and 13 and then yanks one out of bounds and then keeps everybody alive. But that's when the broadcast and Jim Nantz and Balionis started really pushing the story. Hey, be aware. if DJ can win this, it is some pretty elite company.
Incredibly elite company. One more quick note on win number 21. Since 2008, he is tied with Tiger Woods for the most wins, 21.
Huh?
And some people might go, really? Tiger's won 21 times since 2008? Obviously, everything happened in late 2009. Yes, he has. You want to know who's second on that list? Rory, 18.
Okay. All right. That's a good stat, too.
Good stat.
How many years did Tiger not play?
Gosh.
Because he's got his 21 in a sample size significantly smaller than Dustin Johnson's sample size.
I want to go with like 2.5 years.
Yeah,
I don't think it was 3 or 4 full years.
I was thinking 3-4, but then he's missed large chunks of time in other years too.
We need to refresh ourselves on that because there were a couple of times I think in that stretch where he did attempt to play, but he did not finish.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you might be right.
He was absent for a long time. As great as that story is, I'm not sure if that was the best story though from the Travelers.
Okay.
Will Gordon.
Yeah.
Will Gordon, who was the SEC Player of the Year at Vanderbilt.
Right.
So Gordon goes into that tournament with 2, I believe, sponsors exemptions left because he was in the playoffs on the Korn Ferry Tour. So he was close. He had to play well to do it, to earning his PGA Tour card.
Mm-hmm.
Then the pandemic hits. That's off the table. So he's got some sponsor exemptions. And it looked like he fell off the map on Saturday, shooting 71. He bounces back yesterday. He finishes tied for third. And by doing so, he now has enough points that he has special temporary membership on the tour for the remainder of the year. So he doesn't have to worry about using up sponsors exemptions or anything like that. And then with this, he can earn his card for years down the line if he can continue to play well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool story. Absolutely. He finished tied for third at 17 under with Canadian Mackenzie Hughes. Kevin Streelman was second at 18 under par. But you're right. He shot that 71 in the third, which is not a bad number.
No.
But he rebounds with a 64, and that gave a 3-round average to Will Gordon of 64 because he was 66, 62, 71, 64. So a 3-round average of 64 if you remove round 3 for him, which is remarkable.
Here's one other thing I didn't realize about the Travelers that I found out watching the broadcast yesterday. Will Gordon is not alone in being a young name shooting to stardom at the Travelers. You ready for this list? The Travelers has a history of finding and choosing the right young guys to give exemptions to. John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Ricky Fowler, Webb Simpson. Last year, Colin Morikawa, who just had that stretch of 22 straight cuts made. Morikawa was in the field last year. So was Matthew Wolff, and so was Victor Hovland.
And Hovland finished time for 11th yesterday. Wow.
So the Travelers, whatever their formula is for identifying the next guys, it's good.
Yeah, Hovland had a great week. 13 under, all in the 60s. Yeah, Darren, I thought this was a good tournament.
It was.
I really did. By the way, 19 under. I said the winner will be at 17 or 18.
Yes, and I said a little bit below that, and Scott Glaze had it at 23. Yeah. And DJ could have gotten to 23, but DJ couldn't. Yeah. You got it. DJ was right there. He couldn't put it away.
It's my best Blake Shelton pick me imitation from The Voice. You ever watched him do that?
I did, yes.
When he always points.
I haven't watched The Voice in a long, long time, but I do recall.
It's been hard to watch with these screenshots and all this other junk with the COVID-19 stuff. All right, and then, of course, the major news, which you're getting this everywhere, and this is one of the reasons why Darren and I haven't sat around and focused on this, but it is major news, and if you want our take, you'll get it quickly here. Cam Newton, he is headed to New England, which, only a couple of months ago, I think we talked to Raphael about this, about the fact that the odds of him signing with New England were really good, and then we didn't hear anything for a long time, and now he has. He's on a 1-year deal. It's a very incentive-laden deal for Cam Newton, and how well will he fit up there? I don't know. Here's what's interesting. They got 2 Auburn quarterbacks duking it out: Jarrett Stidham and Cam Newton. I thought that was the most interesting thing of the whole ordeal here. I'm not a huge Cam Newton fan. Could care less how he plays up there. Could have cared less how he played in Charlotte. Whatever.
Yep.
But it's him and Jarrett Stidham and then Brian Hoyer, who's been around for 11 years. They'll compete for the starting job.
Cam Newton was pretty vocal in saying he's not just going to go take a backup job. My guess is he is under the impression that he is at least the number one, if not tied number one going into camp.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be his impression. And that he has every chance to beat out Stidham and become the guy.
I think he has a great chance to be the starter up there.
I would think so. I still have lots of questions about Cam. I mean, his shoulder, his legs, how healthy is he? Can he really drive that football? He doesn't have a great receiving core up there. So, will his antics work with Belichick, the post-game stuff, I want to call them costumes. That's basically what they are.
No, they won't.
Right. So I get it, but I'm not sold that this is a working scenario.
I mean, look, I think I'm probably on the other end of the way some people think about Cam Newton, because a lot of people, the way that they look, he does so much for the kids and he gives football for the kids. I look at that as photo ops for him. I don't think Cam Newton really cares much about people outside of Cam Newton. I've thought that forever. I thought that at Florida. I thought that at Auburn. I've thought that since he's been in the NFL. I've watched the kid his whole career. I just don't care for him much.
I don't like the public I don't like the way he portrays himself playing. I give him more credit for the how good he is in the community. I mean, there's a lot of money there. There is a lot of time spent.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'll give him credit for that. No doubt.
Some of it is certainly PR, photo op. Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
But I give him credit for that. He seems to be a good person. His former teammates, are happy for him, very publicly happy for him. So he's probably a good person. I've never met him, but I don't. Ever since the Super Bowl, walking off the podium, that was kind of it for me. That was just, look, man, that's just not how you act.
Yeah, I like I said, whatever. I lost whatever respect I kind of had for him, after the Florida debacle again. When I saw him from 20 feet in Auburn, when he gave the whole throat slash thing, didn't get a flag for it. Maybe they didn't see it. I don't know, but I was like, this guy, whatever. I'm done with him. I didn't like him in Charlotte. And again, it's not like New England has some incredible reputation of only signing guys with great character. I think we all know they've had guys who have had very questionable character at best. Some guys who've had awful character, like murderers. But at the same time, for the most part, dudes who sign to play in New England, they understand that name on the front is a hell of a lot bigger and more important than the name on the back, and they will get rid of you.
Generally speaking, the problem kids, the problem pros, they go to New England and straighten it out.
Yeah, at least temporarily while they're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Generally speaking. His name is slipping my... Antonio Brown is the exception to that rule.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work last year.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady has been the leader on that team for 20 years. So
that's a good point,
right? I mean, he's been the guy. I mean, he as much as Belichick, Tom Brady holds these guys accountable. Well, this group of quarterbacks hold their football team as accountable as Tom Brady did.
Yep, that's a very good point.
We'll see. I know somebody who's very accountable. It's Darren Heitner. He's going to join us next. When we return, we'll talk about, if you haven't heard this, you will want to hear this story. Under Armour is basically canceling an Under Armour deal, apparel deal, two of them, with West Coast teams, UCLA and California. And what they're saying, right, is we're not getting our return on this. I don't know how they're proving that.
Well, the UCLA and Cal are saying they can't prove that. All the meanwhile, Under Armour stock is plummeting. Right. They are in trouble. So is this a sign of things to come?
Right.
Are these the first two of a long line of schools? And if it is, look at Jamie's shirt right now. He's got a big old Under Armour logo above the South Carolina game.
By the way, my national championship shorts, which these were TI, team issued, also Under Armour. But yeah, it's South Carolina is one of their biggest moneymakers.
Yes, they are.
So are the Auburn Tigers. We'll see.
Yep.
He might have some inside information on that. So Darren's going to join us next. We'll still get you our days of the week calendar in just a little while as well, so hang tight. Plenty to come in the last segment of the JB and Goldwater Show.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Cisco, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris liquor stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. DB'scheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
This is former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth, and you're listening to my friends JB and Goldwater.
All right, welcome back. Final segment of the afternoon, 1:30 on a warm Monday afternoon in the Low Country of South Carolina, June the 29th. Again, if you missed any part of our show, we've also celebrated 10 years to the day with Blake Cooper, former ace at South Carolina. You can go back and listen to that later. 10 years ago today, Gamecocks winning their first of 2 consecutive national championships in Omaha. That one, of course, over UCLA. The next one over the Florida Gators, Darren Heitner, who joins us here on our program. Not to talk about that, to talk about some other stuff. But, yeah, I had to get my little dig in there. What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
Hey, it's okay. Y'all got one. It's good. You're all good. We're hanging, man. How are you? Boy, I bet you're busy, aren't you?
Yeah, we're staying busy down here in South Florida. Business is good, but, every week is something new with coronavirus. And unfortunately, I guess we're the epicenter now of the latest spike where every day it seems like there's 10,000 new cases. So I just learned beaches will be closed July 4th weekend. So got to figure out new plans.
Wow. That is devastating.
Probably. It wouldn't shock me if that happens here in South Carolina either. But the reason we brought you on here, it struck my mind immediately when I saw what Under Armour was doing with UCLA, and then Cal was quickly followed there. And my thought was, okay, wait a second. South Carolina is Under Armour as well. So that becomes pretty darn important here. The state of Under Armour right now is not very good. Do you think this is a sign of things to come?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. I'm not sure what Under Armour's strategy is at this point. So look back 4 years, May 2016, Under Armour enters into a $280 million contract with UCLA, the most lucrative apparel contract for any brand with any university. And here we are 4 years later with Under Armour being quite cryptic in its public statement saying UCLA hasn't delivered on its marketing deliverables, not adding any specificity beyond that. Some people assume it may be related to coronavirus and certain teams not performing to the threshold that they are required to. But again, it's not clear what Under Armour is holding its hat on to get out of this contract. But it has made it clear. UCLA, we're not paying you any more money. Meanwhile, UCLA responds, well, we're exploring all of our options, which is really another way of saying we're getting ready to litigate, to turn this into a lawsuit. I haven't yet seen specifically that Under Armour's tried to pull out of its sponsorship with Berkeley, but many are assuming that may be the next step because that's also a very lucrative contract. You know, it's really interesting about your question whether South Carolina may be next. Well, just a week or so ago, Under Armour re-upped, I believe, with Texas A&M. So while it's shedding costs with the California schools, or school, specifically UCLA right now, it does appear at the same time appropriating resources elsewhere. Big picture, you know, Under Armour is a company that's struggling. 4 years ago, stock price of roughly $40. Today, and I haven't looked at what it's done so far today, but going into today, it's at roughly $9 a share, with a market cap of about $5 billion, whereas Nike's in excess of $100 billion. So it's a company that's had issues. It recently had issues even paying its biggest athlete endorsers, asking them to hold off on receiving money they otherwise do. Could South Carolina be next? Sure. But so could every school that's in contract with Under Armour if it goes kaput, if it goes bankrupt.
On Twitter, at Darren Heitner, founder of Heitner Legal. Look, I want to, before we go further with this, I actually want to commend you. I look at your Twitter page often. You are one of the true professionals out in the world right now who you give us really good, truthful information, and I certainly appreciate that. Extremely thorough with your work, Darren, and we're very honored to have you on here. I think this is the second time on our program. So with this, I'm assuming they're trying to end this contract immediately. Is that correct?
That is absolutely the assumption. Again, it was a very short statement that Under Armour put out at the end of last week. But it did make it clear that it's taking the position that the contract is effectively terminated. And that means that I believe it was a 15-year contract, thereabouts. So 4 years in to a $280 million contract, you're saying we want out. And you're saying it so you're not even a third into this long-term contract. And yes, the assumption is that Under Armour will stop making payments to UCLA right now. And I would think that at a minimum, UCLA probably has an obligation to try to mitigate damages to the best of its ability. I have to imagine that it's going out now in a very tough marketplace, in a tough time period, whereas in May 2016, it probably would have been much easier for UCLA to demand much more lucrative opportunities. Now it has to go out there in the marketplace, talk to the Nikes and the Adidases of the world, a Jordan brand under Nike, and see what they can possibly get. But I can't imagine it's going to be anywhere near what it was able to sign for with Under Armour.
How? I guess what I don't understand is how is Under Armour going to prove that they aren't receiving what they say they're not receiving, which they said, marketing benefits, right? How do they prove that?
Well, I looked at the 37-page contract that the parties had executed, and there were a number of deliverables that you could consider be marketing. You have coaches and school administrators that needed to do in-person appearances. You have the school with obligations with regard to signage, making sure that Under Armour is placed there. But again, you would assume that Under Armour would at least point to some specifics as to the deliverables that were not provided by UCLA. And to be honest, we haven't heard a single point that Under Armour will utilize as justification to say that there was a breach of contract. And then one step further, the contract itself requires that Under Armour provides UCLA a notice of exactly what the breach was and what's called an opportunity to cure. And at a minimum, 30 days for the school to have that opportunity. In the statement, we don't know whether or not that opportunity to cure was provided. There's no specific statement related to that. But interestingly, in UCLA's also a very short statement, it didn't say that Under Armour failed to provide that opportunity to cure. I would imagine something like that does come up if, in fact, there's litigation, and I expect there to be litigation. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. Darren Heitner is with us. He is a sports lawyer, founded Heitner Legal. He's a professor teaching sports law at his alma mater down there in Gainesville at Florida. And the first time we brought you on, as we kind of pivot from Under Armour, was to talk NIL, because that's when it really became evident that Florida was ahead of California here, and plus the NCAA was starting to look at some stuff. So now Florida has gone ahead, taken that step. So has Colorado down the line for a couple more years. Jamie and I had a question. So let's say in 2021, when this goes into effect for Florida, name, image, likeness, athletes can benefit off that. If the NCAA hasn't put out any type of mandate or restrictions, is it kind of free reign down there in Florida right now or next year?
Free reign to the extent that people are still operating within the confines of the statute that was passed earlier this law by Governor DeSantis in the past month. So as long as individuals who are enrolled at college campuses, that is a prerequisite. You can't do it prior to being enrolled. As long as they're utilizing agents who are licensed in the state, attorneys who are licensed in the state, and not just any agent, as long as they're focusing specifically on those marketing to playing professionally, yes, or the value of their names, images, and likenesses in these types of deals.
You're breaking up on us just a touch here.
Okay.
But I think we got you back now.
I'll have.
Right.
Let me talk. let me chat with engineering on this, Darren.
Yeah, it's actually it's on his end, but conveniently when the video we lost, I've got a nice picture of the 40 under 40 with Darren Heitner right there.
Fantastic.
So if we got the audio, then we're good.
So Darren, obviously the point of what states like Florida are doing is to try to fast forward the process with the NCAA. If they do plan to try to put this under their umbrella in a way that is beneficial to the athletes, like a lot of these states are trying to do, I don't really know what's going to happen with this. You have much more insight on this than we do. The NCAA's asked Congress for a couple of things. Congress might be a little busy these days. Who knows? So there's a lot of timelines that are interacting here. There's a great fear on my end, at least, that the NCAA, that they'll even be able to get this done, A, and be able to get it done right, B. What is the reality that we could be looking at multiple states with different rules and laws in the next couple of years, and the NCAA not having a real firm grasp on this before that is put into play?
Well, there are only 3 states right now that have passed legislation and actually signed it into law. Florida, 2021, Colorado, California, 2023. So unless Colorado and California amend their legislation and bring up the effective date to July 2021, we're really only talking about Florida for the time being. Do I expect other states between now and July 2021 to kind of jump on board and join Florida in this effort? Absolutely, because I think it's very clear that schools in the state of Florida are going to have a competitive advantage when it comes to recruiting. And there are many states that'll be lobbied by the universities to really get moving and negotiate, adopt legislation that goes to name, image, and likeness. But at the same time, as you mentioned, the NCAA has finally woken up and realized what's happening in the world and has provided 31 pages of recommendations as to what to do with name, image, and likeness. Allegedly in October of this year, or at least by October, we will see actual legislation for the NCAA, what they will look at and ultimately debate and potentially pass in January of next year. That's irrespective of whatever the federal government does. And you are absolutely right. I don't know that the federal government really has the time or has the wherewithal to be debating and passing this type of legislation right now. So we could ultimately have a situation where the NCAA makes a change, but it's not sufficient to satisfy those interests in like a state like Florida. So you have the NCAA providing allowances, then you also have a state like Florida with its own law in the books. And that'll make for an interesting landscape where even if all college athletes have some right, it may not be the same rights that a college athlete has in the state of Florida.
So if the NCAA doesn't come in and, well, I guess the bottom line is, at the moment, we're set up for a mess when July 2021 comes, whether or not it's Florida or 10 states.
I don't know that it's a mess, but it won't be easy for, let's say, an athlete who decides to accept an offer at a Florida school and then a year in wants to transfer to a school outside of Florida. What happens in that instance if the school that the player is transferring to is in a state that does not yet allow for the same type of compensation in exchange for the use of name, image, likeness? So there can be issues by not having one streamlined rule or law. I mean, this would have been as easy as the NCAA years ago, or even right now, deciding to just remove the prohibition, right? Then we have no issue. Instead, what we saw months ago were 31 pages of recommendations, which was absolutely just a power grab by the NCAA, every form and facet of it, over guardrails and whether or not a deal is appropriate for a player. And that's just not something, that's such a limited market where the NCAA controls everything. And I see just too much potential for corruption.
Darren Heitner Legal. He is in the great state of Florida. HeitnerLegal.com. Follow him on Twitter at Darren Heitner. Darren, we in the future, once we get some more information on this, hopefully it'll be sooner than later, we'd love to reach out with you or to you again and try to get your perspective on things. Certainly we'll keep our eyes on the Under Armour situation as well, and I would encourage everybody to make sure that they're following you on Twitter because it is wonderful information to read every day. Thank you so much for your time once again, brother, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you.
There you go. Very good stuff. He is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and trying to, what he said coming out of his mouth and coming out of our mouths is a little bit different. But what he said, essentially, is kind of what we all know already. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't anything earth-shattering, but from a legal perspective, it holds more water and it holds more weight, if you'd like to say it that way, Darren. I don't know. I guess I probably should have asked him. This is a pretty poor job on my part.
No, it's okay. The breaking up was getting a little bit too much, but hey, it happens.
I guess one question I would be interested in having answered by somebody of his expertise, and maybe we can at least send him a note and maybe get a response. We can read it on the air, maybe tomorrow if you wouldn't mind doing that. What if we just get so the NCAA could be looking at this one of two ways. They could look at this and say, well, it's 3 states. 2 very important states, certainly, in California and Florida. But it is 3 states. So if you're an athlete and you elect to go play whatever sport you elect to play in one of these states, we still can say, look, you can do whatever you want, but our rule, because we don't have anything official on the books, is because you are participating in athletics in Florida or in California or whatever, our rule is you will not be eligible to play in anything. You are not an active participant because we are not acknowledging. So I don't know how they would fight that legally.
I think that's what he was getting at. That's where it could become problematic. If I'm in Florida, if I'm an athlete in college, say I'm the quarterback, just to make it easy, and I am profiting off my name, image, and likeness, be it from my Instagram page or from, sponsorships or whatever. And then I fall out of favor, my coach leaves, whatever, and I want to transfer to South Carolina. Then is South Carolina going to say, well, you're not eligible?
Right.
That is where the big issue could very well come in.
Well, and can the NCAA, do they have the authority to say that might be a law in your state, but it ain't a rule in our rule book, and I don't care what the law in your state is. The rule in our rule book says you are playing for Florida or whatever, whoever, doing whatever you're doing. You, as part of that, or your institution, will not be eligible to participate in athletics this year under the NCAA umbrella because what you're doing is not in our rule book.
I see what you're saying. So if I'm at Florida currently doing this, can the NCAA say, I don't care that Florida lets you,
Doesn't matter.
We don't let you.
Yeah, we're not letting you. Florida didn't let you do it. Like, let's say you got some star quarterback who goes to Florida, and this rule takes place, or this law takes place next summer. The NCAA does not have a rule in place that allows for any of this by that point in time. And they say, well, these three states, all of your athletics are ineligible to participate in NCAA sanctioned events. Sorry. It doesn't matter. You might not like it, but it sucks. Or are there other states going, the more we can get this going, the better this is going to be? You know, if you have 3 states right now, what if you had 13?
Well, other states are going to. You'll see more states because it's a competitive advantage for Florida.
All I'm talking about is the timeline, trying to speed the timeline up so you don't run into this overlap of state laws versus NCAA legislation. Like if you all of a sudden have 13 or 15 states over the next 6 months who say, well, these are our state laws and they're all very similar, then the NCAA, what are they going to do? They're going to tell 15 states that they can't participate? No. You know how much money they're going to lose? I mean, they can't do that, so they're going to have to change quicker. The reality of this is, Darren, it could take them about a week to change this if they really wanted it to.
Yeah, like Darren just said. Look, it'd be really easy. They could just take the rule out of their rule book. Right. I mean, it wouldn't even need a week. You could just say, you know what? From this point forward, it's up to the states, and if the athletes want to profit off their name, image, and likeness, then you're governed by that state, and have at it.
Right. Exactly.
It's a very easy fix, and it could be what we see.
I mean, I think that they certainly have enough information to make a decision like that. They just might not want to make that decision. They might still be trying to find ways to spin it to where it's a little bit preferable to whatever they want it to be. But I don't know. That and this Under Armour thing, I'm just fascinated by this. I mean, golly, only a decade ago, Under Armour was like the real threat to Nike. I mean, you think about it. Like when they first started making the big deals, the first major deal on the college scene was Auburn. That was the first real big one. Auburn is Under Armour. Holy moly. And you had Cam Newton in an Under Armour jersey and all this stuff. I mean, it's in South Carolina had already, I think South Carolina converted to Under Armour in 2006. So the 2007 season for football is when they first displayed the Under Armour logo, if I remember correctly, under Coach Spurrier.
Okay.
Yeah, the Click Clack commercial. Yeah, Click Clack. You remember that commercial?
Now that you say it that way, yeah. I remember.
Yeah, Click Clack. That was like the first commercial for Coach Spurrier in Under Armour. And it was like this, oh, man, everybody's going to start switching to Under Armour. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, they got a lot, but nothing like what Nike has. And Jumpman, of course, Nike brand, but Jumpman, is even now, you know, who do they have? North Carolina, Michigan.
Oh, well, those are 2 premier ones that they have. Yeah, but they've got a ton.
Yeah, they got a bunch.
They've got a ton. And they're on the PGA Tour too.
Hey, look, I'll tell you this. I know some guys who've played football and baseball. Matter of fact, I've put a pair on myself, but I never played in them. But I know guys who played football and baseball at South Carolina that will tell you that the Under Armour cleats are terrible.
That was one of their major issues early on. I don't remember from a cleat standpoint, but from a basketball sneaker standpoint, that was one of their big problems, that they just weren't as safe. The players didn't feel as comfortable in those shoes because they weren't as sturdy, and they just didn't feel right.
Yeah. Name, image, and likeness should be a part of that conversation as well. What if you have an athlete who becomes sponsored by Under Armour
at a Nike school? The school's not going to let that happen.
Thanks to our friends at Patriots Point for sponsoring our national anthem, a beautiful national anthem we play every day at 1 o'clock on our program, patriotspoint.org. Last night concluded the first weekend, 3 consecutive nights on their first weekend of drive-in movies. HolyCityDriveIn.com for next weekend's schedule as well. I think it was Sonic the Hedgehog that played last night. I know Midway played on Friday. I can't remember which movie showed Saturday evening. There will not be a movie on Saturday. That's the 4th of July. But they will have one Friday and Sunday this week over at Patriots Point. Also, of course, if you go to Patriots Point, check out a remarkable history in the Yorktown, the Laffey, the Clamagore, the Vietnam War exhibit. Incredible sights and sounds at Patriots Point. PatriotsPoint.org for more information.
And if you haven't been, we will have tickets in hand soon. Chris Huff emailed me today or yesterday.
Today, probably.
So tickets are on their way to us, which means they will be on their way to you.
That's right. We're going to be doing some ticket giveaways. We'll start this week, as a matter of fact. Maybe just in time for the 4th of July weekend if you're looking for something to do. No fireworks to see this weekend. Maybe you'll just go to Patriots Point with your family. Grab your mask. Be careful. But you can still see everything at Patriots Point, where they are white glove certified. That means they're clean.
Yes.
According to DHEC. It is time for everybody's favorite segment. What day is today on the National Day calendar? June the 29th. Second to last day of the month. For those that thought there was 31 days in June, you're wrong. Today, it is National Camera Day. Take a picture of somebody, folks.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Or go buy a new camera.
Or buy yourself a new
Or
camera.
get a phone, because the camera on the phone is as good as most cameras that you're going to buy.
That's right. That's right. National Camera Day. Take a fine photo. Get yourself an upgrade camera. It is also one of the great inventions in breakfast history. National Waffle Iron Day. You know the waffle iron in the hotel?
Oh, yeah. That's a solid invention.
Clutch move.
I thought you were going to go like egg sandwich, bagel sandwich or something like that. I made those this morning, in fact.
Oh, wonderful. Waffle irons are really, really big deals. When you go to a hotel and you're like, oh, man, you get to do it yourself, it's fun. I always try to do it, especially the round ones.
Yeah.
I always try to do it to where it's actually full, but sometimes there's like that little edge that never got the batter.
You just play games with yourself.
Yeah.
The way that it's all timed out perfectly and you know when to flip it and when to open it. Yeah, pretty impressive. Just get a little cup of the batter, I guess, pour it on.
That's right. And it is also National Almond Butter Crunch Day. I have never had one of these. It's toffee.
Okay, good start.
Covered in chocolate.
Good start.
And they come together to create Butter Crunch. It has a crunchy texture and a caramel flavor.
Like the Score Bar.
Essentially.
Which is one of the all-time great candy bars.
Yeah. I've never actually had an almond butter crunch, but I think I want to. This is really, really cool.
It's just that description is a Score Bar.
Yeah.
It's the hard, crunchy, not caramel or whatever, toffee with chocolate.
That's right.
Yeah.
So happy National Almond Butter Crunch Day. Happy
Score
National
Bar sounds a lot better than almond butternut crunch.
Butter crunch.
Okay.
Waffle Iron Day. You could take a picture of both today with your brand new camera to celebrate National Camera Day. 2 days tomorrow, and then into July we go. I think everybody can probably figure out what's on the 4th of July, but tomorrow's an interesting day. That's for sure.
All right.
And the 1st of July is a good day if you like sweets. So we've got a good week coming up. It is 4th of July week, and we hope that you will celebrate safely here in the Low Country. I would imagine that this year in particular, if you own a fireworks stand, your sales are going through the roof because there's no fireworks in anywhere.
Yeah. And then you're still going to have to deal with your HOA and your neighborhoods. And
my neighborhood, they don't care.
Oh, really?
Nah. Man.
Our best fireworks story was, I don't remember how long ago, a former neighbor was getting remarried, and they were using the Bell Hall clubhouse as the spot for the reception. So we lived in Bell Hall at the time, and it was very easy to take his full, it was big enough that it covered an entire flatbed pickup truck. So it's a whole basically platter of fireworks. So we bring that all the way over to the clubhouse at Bell Hall, and we started setting them off. And it was like a 15-minute show. I mean, it was strong, man. And eventually the police show up, and they got there a little late. So we were all done. So we're like, oh, my bad. We're done. Done. No worries.
It's probably going to happen this week because you can't go watch fireworks anywhere. So, anyway.
Well, Gordon, if you want to put together another show, it was a good show. Really, really good show.
I haven't decided whether I'm going to purchase fireworks or not. More than likely not. I'll probably do like some sparklers or something for the kids so they can see them.
Yeah. Other than that,
Vominos. Yeah.
Not trying to blow my hand off. And knowing me, that's possible.
Emily Bates, the number one prospect in the 2022 basketball class, maybe the best player to come out of high school basketball in the last 2 decades, according to some, has decided he will attend Michigan State in 2022.
Whoa. Michigan State. What high school is he coming from?
I'm not sure.
Is he in the state?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure where he's from, but
good get for the Spartans. My guy Damon Bethea, who played up there.
No. I'm not sure. I'll need to look at that.
All right.
He did play in the Peach Jam. Everybody plays in the Peach Jam.
Yeah.
Good show. Man, we had a lot to get to today. We'll do our best to squeeze everything else in tomorrow. We'll actually preview the ACC's Coastal Division tomorrow, over under win totals like we did with the SEC West last week, and then on to the rest of the league later on this week. Thank you so much to Darren Heitner for joining us in this segment, and also to Blake Cooper, former ace at South Carolina, pitching coach at the Citadel. Look back, 10 years ago today, Gamecocks celebrate their first national championship. As always, thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
We're back tomorrow at noon. I'll sign off with this one today on a special day in my family of Garnet and Black. Go Gamecocks. See you tomorrow.